This is Mark Valier with MK Golf. This is my continuing series on club fitting, club making, and in general sense of how we perform our business. When I'm fitting someone, my fitting philosophy is fairly simple. We're very fundamental. I tend to have a sense of what they do on tour is the way I want to approach my customers, not from the fundamental perspective of everybody's going to come in and be a PGA Tour player, but whatever the guys on tour are doing, I kind of want to stay in that same direction. So the equipment they're using, how they're learning to play, what technology they're using. So when somebody comes in, I'm going to profile them, where they play, how much they play, what their handicap is, what their desire is. Do they travel to play golf? They do buddy trips. Just get a general sense of how that works with them with regard to the game and how much time they can spend. So once I get this slight profile, my first thing I need to know is what their speed is. So as they're warming up, I'm kind of got one eye on them and one eye on the paperwork. So when I see speed and I see fundamentals, I already start to map out a direction. There's somebody swinging at 80 miles an hour with a 7-iron. They're about 6 to 10 handicap. I'm going to head a certain direction with the equipment. The geometry of the club is important. The length of the club is important. The weight of the shaft is important. The balance point of the shaft. All these parameters are fundamental for how I see a direction to take.
Who should get fit? How good of a player should you be, and can beginners get fit?
Well, I think I can work with anybody. I get that question a lot. Somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I haven't played in 15 years. I'm getting ready to retire. Do I need a new set of clubs?" And what I tell people is, come get fit. Let me give you the recommendations, and you decide based on the data that you see and that you receive from the fitting.
Talk about the fact that everybody's body's a little bit different, everybody's swing's a little bit different, and if you walk into some box store and buy clubs off the rack, you're not getting the proper club for your swing.
Well, we shouldn't put the cart before the horse. I get a call, somebody says, "Hey, I just bought a new set of clubs, I want you to fit me with them." Well, that's kind of like in reverse. And so, if you're going to a box store, you might run across a salesperson that has a little knowledge from reading online, whatever. But we've been doing this, for decades. I've studied the equipment. I studied the engineering design behind the equipment. I understand how it works. We understand shaft profiles, the EI curves, the tip stiffness. We understand frequency and how it relates to speed and torque and heft. For example, if I got a player here that weighs 120 pounds, is swinging at 105 miles an hour, and then I get somebody here that's swinging at 100 miles an hour that weighs 200 pounds, that person delivers the golf club with more heft. And so I have to be very cognizant of how I approach that person versus the other person, because, at 180 pounds, I can hit a 8-iron, with a certain speed, probably a little bit further, because I have a higher trajectory, because I have more delivery into the ground and the turf interaction that I get with my club.
People watch TV all the time. They see pros with a different set of club in their bag, like a 4-5 iron, maybe a 3-iron. How many amateurs that you fit can actually play those longer clubs? And why is it important to kind of educate them that maybe their 3, 4, 5, and 6-iron all go in the same distance?
Well, I'm going to start with the ladies first. If I get a lady in here that's retired and plays golf regularly with her group, and her speed is in the 60-mile-an-hour range, and I don't see a lot of differential between clubs, my first thought is they don't need 14 clubs. They might need a 5-iron, a 7-iron, a 9-iron, because the gap between shots, between a 5 and a 6 and a 4, are all the same. So when you get to speed on the low end of the spectrum, you can't make the ball go up in the air enough. So when I see somebody that's trying to play a 3-iron or 4-iron and has slow speed, then we need to get him in hybrids and clubs that have a deeper center of gravity. Now, today we have driving irons, and a lot of these young players come in here, they want to have a driving iron, and they're swinging at 85 miles an hour with their 7-iron. that's when you need to break it up with them and say you need a hybrid versus a driving iron, because you still don't have the speed to get that driving iron in the air, even though it might have a bigger, wider sole with a lower CG. So my philosophy has to change between each person that I fit.
The scoring clubs are the wedges, and those are important to get fit too, correct?
Absolutely. You know, I like to stay 4 degrees apart, 5 degrees max. Most of the pitching wedges today are 45 degrees, 46 degrees. So that means now you have a 52-degree wedge in your bag, and now you have 7 degrees of differential between the pitching wedge and the 52. If you're trying to score, and you really need to be 4 to 5 degrees apart. So 50, 54, 58 is my direction, and I'm looking at the profile. My philosophy is forget what the bounce number is, because most of the bounce numbers are not actual degrees of angle from the leading edge to the face, to the sole. You have to look at it from a profile. This is a particular profile, like Bogey's M grind, which stands for my favorite, or the S grind, which stands, according to Vokey, as Steve Stricker's favorite club. So, you know, the S grind, the M grind, the F grind, the D grind, all these grinds are profiles. And so I'm listening for sound as they hit the turf. Now, every once in a while we'll go outdoors and do this to get a better indication of what the turf interaction is. But overall, my philosophy is to fit in individual players based on their profile. I have to build up a database of what they're doing, understand how they want to accomplish, you know, what they're trying to do on the golf course.
Everybody wants to hit it further. How can club fitting help you hit the ball farther?
Well, distance is very important. When you're talking to the engineers that design clubs, you ask them, what's your direction from an engineering perspective? They go, we want to design clubs that go further. So I'm swinging at 100 miles an hour. I've got an R-Flex shaft at 50 gram. It doesn't seem to be optimal. We're looking at the profile of the player again and their speed. I try to get him into, there's ranges of flexes that work, but flex is not my first parameter, it's weight. Somebody that's lightweight, body weight wise, I might tend to go 50 gram, but I might go up in flex, like stiff. Somebody that's a little heavier, a little stronger, I might go 60 gram, I might go R. You know, each shaft manufacturer makes a profile that fits every player. Tip stiff, mid-soft, torque of the shaft, you know, the different relationships that shaft quality has. We always try to fit to better quality shafts because of the quality of the product. You know, 50-ton preg, 60-ton preg, 70-ton preg. Those are the expensive products. If your speed is slower than 100 miles an hour, maybe you could play that OEM shaft. You know, I know Ping has a very good selection of OEM upgrade products that aren't, you know, $300 to $400 to $500 a shaft. So we have a lot of success with that. But those shafts are made by manufacturers like UST, for example, or Alola. But overall, our fitting philosophy is just generally we want to work with each player one at a time and understand what they're trying to do with the game.
Everyone thinks they know how far they hit it, but the machine tells a different story and gives you very accurate numbers, correct?
Yeah, if you get the correct spin numbers based on the aerodynamics and the science behind a golf ball flight, you know, you can get really good data. If you see something that doesn't look right from a numbers perspective, the user has to be the key. Just delete the shot. You know, don't sit there and say, well, your spin was 1,000 RPM and it went 30 yards further than their previous shot, and the player scratching his head like, well, I don't think I can hit it that far on the golf course. You know, so you have to be realistic with the data you get, and you have to hit 5 to 7 shots, for example, take the best 3 or 4, and go from there. So this is my philosophy. This is Mark Verlier with MK Golf, and I'll see you again soon.